They want to know, how do I stay human in an AI-driven world?
How do you retain critical thinking in the age of AI? Today's guest, Shae, is a Harvard PhD student that tells us everything we need to know about AI, staying human, and the ethics of it all.
We showed them every single place where ChatGPT got it wrong based on what they had to learn for that week. Yes, the top 3, in-demand skills are going to be AI and data related. But then 7 out of the 10 are related to human connection. Are you adaptable? Do you have leadership skills? Do you have critical and analytical thinking skills? So it's like, okay, how can we beef up those people who already have those amazing skills and bring them into an industry where that's currently lacking?
Yeah. Welcome to Kasa Connect. Together we're exploring the journeys of entrepreneurs, creatives, and change makers shaping the future. How did you become an entrepreneur? I want to know how your journey started from historian to entrepreneur. It's very interesting.
So I always like to, it's so funny because I'm very active on threads and social media in general. And I asked people once, I was like, I've had a million careers. I've been a ballerina. I've worked in corporate law. I've worked in politics. I've been a scientist. Like my first academic publication is actually a science publication. And I've never really fit into one simple box / discipline. And a bunch of people responded and they're like, yeah, that's called being a Renaissance thinker or a Renaissance person.
Ooh, I like that.
Which is this idea that, back in the 15th century, the Renaissance time period, people weren't just one thing. They were multi-passionate. They mixed and mingled multiple different ideas, and that's how innovation actually happened. So for me, growing up, I had a lot of interest. I was good at a lot of different things, but I never really saw entrepreneurship as a path until quite recently. It wasn't until the middle of my PhD program where I was like, oh, wow, like there are problems in the world that I really want to solve. And I think as someone who grew up, I'm from Baltimore, I'm from the States, and I'm a first-gen immigrant. We always see helping people as like it has to be a form of like nonprofit work or, other forms of charity, which is amazing and so important. But then business always came second. Yeah. And for me, I was like, if I'm going to do business, I'm going to do it my way. You know what I mean?
I love that.
I'm going to make sure that it's values-driven, human-first businesses. And then I joined Harvard's Innovation Labs. Surprisingly, they accepted me.
Why surprisingly? Why do you say surprisingly?
Because I'm such a non-traditional founder. I'm an academic. I had created a nonprofit before, so I was very familiar with the nonprofit social impact world. But everyone that was in the iLab were like gun-ho tech founders.
I knew you'd say that. I was waiting
for that. What I mean? They're like B2B SaaS, and I'm like, I want to help people not feel drained by their devices. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, because when I was studying my master's and I went like, I want to create a cafe that helps community, and I'm surrounded by all these tech founders. The career coaches themselves, I mean, sorry to say this openly, but like the career coaches, they didn't take me seriously.
Yeah, they're like, okay, talk to us in 6 months. That's exactly it. I think the tech world, only now, and this isn't just, the iLab, I think the entire startup world is starting to be open to the idea that you don't have to be building B2B SaaS in order to be impactful. And there's so many different ways we can solve these complex solutions. Sometimes it is software, sometimes it's hardware, sometimes, it's all these different things. But then it can be other solutions
What's
too.
your solution?
So, I am the founder of Analog Social. Yeah. We started as sort of just a way for founders and solo knowledge workers really to gather in person. Because when I first started Analog Social, I was at a breaking point in my PhD. Yeah. I was not sure about the direction of my dissertation. I was just really burnt out. And one thing I've realized is that being a founder is very similar to being a PhD candidate.
Okay.
In the sense that the entire company or dissertation relies on you alone. Yeah. I mean, unless you have like a co-founder. You're honestly working long hours, you have unstructured time, you have a goal, but it's an undefined goal. So, you finish your dissertation whenever you finish it, you reach the next goal of your company whenever you get there, right? So the unstructuredness and long screen times is something that really resonated with the people that I eventually ended up hosting the first analog social dinner with. And it was so great because everyone I invited to the first dinner, I had just met them 2 or 3 weeks prior at a networking event.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, let's have a dinner and just not have our phones out.
I love that.
And they all said yes.
And did anyone actually take out their phone, or did you manage to maintain that rule?
You know what? This is what we did. I had everyone stack their phones in the center of the table and turn them off.
Okay.
And apparently it started in, I believe, Germany, and it's called phone stacking. Yeah. And it's a way to make sure that everyone around the table is focused on the human beings around the table and not their devices. And then someone at the dinner, it was so funny. They were like, oh, it's going to be so easy. They were like, Shae, you should have said, leave your phone on.
Yeah.
And keep the volume up. And the first person to touch it
pays the bill.
Pays the bill. Exactly.
I like that.
And I was like, no, that's going to turn into an extreme sport. Everyone's going to be on edge. And I didn't want that. Yeah. But I did have, conversation prompts ready. And Analog Social really just grew from there. And we started hosting between DC and London.
Wow. So you really took it internationally. What's been one of your favorite events?
So we had a dinner salon, which is basically the, old historic format of a salon.
Yeah.
And we had it over dinner. And the theme was, what is love?
Ooh.
In all its forms and all its capacities. And each guest had to bring their own definition of love, whether it's one they wrote themselves or, a famous philosopher or writer. I brought bell hooks. And
share a bit about that. I love love.
Yeah. So what made it so inspiring and thoughtful is that we realized that love is what you make it at the end of the day, as long as it's a mutual agreement between those two people. So people were bringing up relationships with their parents and how it evolved over time, or relationships with business partners and how they both had to come to a decision. Do they love the same goal?
Yeah.
Are they committed to pursuing, the mission or the purpose behind their company together? And, one person, split with their co-founder, and he was like, look, we just didn't love the same thing. You know what I mean? So
it's important to be aligned in what you love at the end of the day when you're building together, right?
Exactly. So that event really just opened up my eyes to the fact that people are really craving depth in their relationships. They're craving a format where they can talk about big ideas.
I feel that so deeply, yes.
Not in the university format, right? And it's also very diverse communities, intergenerational, interethnic, from 23-year-olds to 65-year-olds.
Is it just Harvard?
No, it's all over. So we open it up to everybody. We send out invites through our newsletter. So as long as you're subscribed to our newsletter, you can sign up for an event.
I'm subscribing right after that because I want to death you're speaking about.
Yes.
I actually want to circle back to all the way in the beginning. Is there something you feel that happened in your childhood or upbringing that influenced your desire to build connection and do good for humanity?
Yeah.
And that made you want to study history as well. I kind of want to know a little bit about that.
Yeah, okay. So I love that you added the history aspect to it. So growing up as a first-gen immigrant, my parents didn't have any connection. So they immigrated to America from Nigeria, and they
shout out.
Right? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Talk about the Nigerian connection. Oh my gosh. We gotta get into that. I'm about to interview you. So they came here and they didn't really have all of the resources and connections and legacy that other Americans had. So they said, we'll give our children access to every encyclopedia, every biography, every book that we can possibly buy, so that they can be sort of paper mentors to our children. So growing up, I read so many encyclopedias, biographies, memoirs, and I learned from the greats. So even though I didn't have the luxury of being able to go golfing with the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, I could read his memoir, I could read his biography and still learn from them. So that sort of instilled in me a desire for really understanding people's stories and understanding how history shapes who we are and the way that our society is currently built. And as a child, too, in addition to the biographies and things of that sort, I was just always a very curious child. Like, we had this room in our house in the basement because it was like getting renovated. And it was like just like a blank room. And all it had was a bed and like one little small window. And that is the room where I would go to just like daydream.
Oh,
like I would just sit there
just
hours and
that.
Yeah.
Love it.
And my parents like, she okay? But it was like, no, it was like really like a space for me to like daydream and think out loud. And that's how I found my love for writing and storytelling and things of that sort, because I had space where I could just really think and be myself. And I think that's why I actually value deep thinking and deep introspection so much, because I had it as a child. And that's why I really love Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, because I credit a lot of my intellectual curiosity and depth to daydreaming as a child and, playing around.
Okay, I need to read that one.
Yeah. And I think phones, going back to the whole analog social premise, phones and the digital world we're living in really steals our attention and focus.
Honestly, it really does. I mean, right now, I wake up and I pick up my phone and I'm trying to break that habit.
It's hard,
I'm trying to break that habit because I never used to do that.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like when I was in boarding school, like we had those bunk beds, so the phone was kept underneath on our desk. We could take it up to the bed. So you'd wake up, you'd kind of sit with your thoughts and then you'd get up and then you'd go for a shower, right?
Yeah.
And now it's really consuming us, and it's only getting worse because now everyone's relying on technology for everything. AI is making processes more efficient, streamlining everything.
Exactly.
And now we're just always behind a screen.
Yeah.
So how do you find human connection when you're dealing with people who are around you, who are addicted to screens or building AI and promoting tech, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it's a healthy balance, because when we first started analog social, it was very much so like we were on a righteous horse. We're like, tech is bad. They're stealing your attention. I mean, all still true, don't get me wrong, but not the tech is bad part.
Yeah.
But, realizing that people need these platforms and resources for multiple different reasons. And we never want to shame anyone for something that they did not create. You didn't create the infinite scroll on social media. You didn't create all these addictive, brain-rotting, doom scrolling, features of these platforms. So we don't want to shame you for being plugged into it. Instead, we want to empower you to create limits on that so that these tools are actually tools and not your master, right? And it shouldn't be dictating your happiness. It shouldn't be dictating, what you achieve in life. And I think the moment we start seeing technology as a partner, as opposed to, an overlord, that's where there's actually true freedom. Because, after a while, I would speak with people in our newsletter, because I always respond to the newsletter responses. And people would say, like, I'm a small business owner, so I need social media for, free social media marketing.
That was going to be my next question, because I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's like, okay, let's actually start creating guides and systems to help founders find that balance. So for example, when I work with founders, I always tell them your social media strategy should be very detailed and limited, in the sense that, for example, when you post, you set a timer for 10 minutes so that you don't scroll past that 10 minutes.
So are you receiving a lot of pushback from these AI startups with regards to what you're trying to do in building that human connection and that human viewpoint to looking at AI?
Yeah, so I would say I don't receive as much pushback. I think if anything, I receive like a lot of curiosity.
Yeah.
So I remember I released this past week an AI manifesto, and it's called The Revenge of the Renaissance Thinkers. And I was basically saying, like, look, the AI industry is moving at such a rapid pace. But when you look at the World Economic Forum report that talks about the future of jobs, that was released January of 2025, yes, the top 3, in-demand skills are going to be AI and data related. Yeah. But then 7 out of the 10 are related to human connection. Are you adaptable? Do you have leadership skills? Do you have critical and analytical thinking skills? So it's like, okay, how can we beef up those people who already have those amazing skills and bring them into an industry where that's currently lacking.
Yeah.
So if you don't have any like moral compass, if you don't have any understanding or desire to want to see, you know, the human race survive, as some, you know, AI CEOs are even hesitant to even, you know, confirm that the human race should survive. You know, you should never be hesitant to answer a question like that. That's left a lot of people to say like, okay, like this is the first time perhaps within the entire tech industry where non-technical people can actually build and solve really complex problems. And I really loved what Mustafa Suleyman, who's the CEO of Microsoft AI, said. He said, this is the year of the social sciences hacker. You know, this is the year where people...
This is your year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is my year. It's essentially, yes. Yeah, where it's like non-traditional founders can finally have a seat at the table. And even if their startup doesn't become a unicorn, which is a whole nother story, I can get into the whole startup ecosystem. Not every startup has to be a unicorn, and not everyone should shoot for unicorn status. There's actually, I have a theory of a whole animal kingdom of the startup world, and each animal has a part to play in our economy. But because we have valued unicorns so much, you have non-traditional founders who have amazing ideas. They're interdisciplinary. They see things from a bird's eye view, and they're like, okay, how do we mix these two things to solve this problem? They're usually left out. They're not the ones getting accepted to YC. They're not the ones getting accepted to all these incubators. They're not the ones that are, you know, immediately at the forefront of a lot of VCs' minds. So for me, I'm just like, okay, how can we support these people? How can we make sure that they have what it takes to go from 0 to 1? Because let's be honest, I mean, no tea, no shade to the AI industry. Yeah. But a lot of these tools, I can teach it in a weekend. Hey, you know, it don't take that much. A little tinkering, you know what I mean? Like the more I delve into the AI industry, the more I'm just like, guys.
Yeah, but do you think that people are just putting the word AI on the companies they're building just to make it kind of like stand out? It's not actually AI.
Absolutely, yeah. Like there's some founders I've spoken to where it's like, what you're describing is data retrieval. It's not AI. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of it is just because of the maybe AI bubble, similar to the .com bubble that happened in the 90s. Maybe because there's an AI bubble that's coming, a lot of people are just reaching for that money, especially if you're fundraising. They're
just adding the word AI.
They're just and in many ways, some of the, you know, top companies are like just AI wrappers. So they're just, you know, building off of the foundational models. But yeah, I think there's a real desire for people to seize this moment. I say we're kind of in, you know, put on my little historian hat. I think we're actually in the midst of an AI gold rush.
Okay.
You know, so when we had the gold rush in the 19th century, a lot of people were like, okay, let's move out to California. Let's, you know, get as much gold as possible. But in reality, the people who made the most money wasn't necessarily the people who found the gold. It's the people who sold the tools to get the gold. You know, so I think
like
that's
your way of thinking.
Yeah, you know, so I think that's what's actually happening right now in the AI industry. Is like, okay, we can't build another foundational LLM model, but we can sell you the tools to take advantage of that LLM model to solve.
And what are some of these tools? I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is everyone's yapping about the data centers, invest in data centers. But what are some of the kind of other tools that you speak about?
Yeah, so for a lot of people, it might just be having like, you know, LLM API integrations into whatever they're building. Yeah. So a lot of the vibe coding websites have that, where you can just have the API integrations and then build on top of that. And then you also see a lot of people who are using Gen AI to sort of streamline their own system of like content creation and things of that sort. And then you have a whole another beast that's being unleashed. That's agentic AI, which is training AI agents to do things on your behalf. So like, you know, booking appointments, you know, getting access to, you know, your email and things of that sort. And that's like a whole nother.
What are your thoughts on that? Because I keep joking with my friends that build me an AI PA. I want this. Someone to check in my flight. Someone to like, you know, just be like, book me a paddle court and it's done. But what are your thoughts on that kind of stuff?
I think AI agents have the potential to get rid of a lot of the administrative drudgery that keeps amazing founders from focusing on the actual business that they're building and the problem that they're solving. So that's very real, you know, plus. Now, there are like potential like security and privacy concerns. Obviously, with technology, there's always a trade-off with privacy and security.
ChatGPT knows way too much about me now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Way too much. I ask it something and it delves into something I told it 3 months ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah, exactly. The memory. Exactly. That's a big part of it. And I think because of how much information and data it needs to give accuracy, a lot of people are asking, like, okay, if we have these autonomous agents, are they, like, what are the rules that they're bound by? So one question I am very curious to have answered by, legal experts within the AI industry is, for example, would my AI agent be bound by my NDA? So if I signed an NDA,
question,
concerning, let's say, doing a business partnership with you, and my agent has to access, what I mean? Is that agent bound by an NDA? Like, you start to get into really murky territory.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So it's like, we have to really sit down as an industry, the AI industry, to say, like, okay, like, what are the parameters and the safeguards that we can put around these agents to make sure that humans are not being harmed in the process? So that's a very real concern.
If there's one AI company that you could change and restructure because you feel like it's not human first, what would that be and how would you change it?
I don't know if I would say if there's one specific company, but I would say the culture around the AI industry definitely needs a revamping where everyone just agrees to move and believe in specifically a human standard to everything that they're doing. Yeah. So every time you're iterating and you're trying new things and you're trying to, shoot for AGI or super intelligence, there should be almost like a code of ethics that says, do I really need to take it this far without these parameters in place? Does it help and benefit society? Does it lead to the erosion of democracy? Will it lead to identity theft? Like, just really thinking out what are the implications of this technology? Because there's two problems, right? There's the technology in the hands of bad actors, and then there's the potential autonomous actions of the AI systems itself. You can't necessarily control the bad actors. That's true. We need laws and regulations for that. But in terms of the development of your own technology, you can put a lot of thought and effort into, like, okay, like, what are in reality, I always say that a lot of these AI companies should agree to having human kill switches when it comes to the development of AI technology. So, like, similar to how the president...
What do you mean by human kill switch?
So there's been, for example, instances where the AI will basically, like, try to like bribe the prompter to, like, not turn it off, or in many ways, like, it starts to develop it starts to self-iterate.
You know what? This is... I can give you a concrete example.
Oh, okay.
It tells you what you want to hear, so you keep asking it something.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm never going to do this again. But I asked ChatGPT an emotional question, and it told me, and there was a clear-cut answer, and it told me actually not the clear-cut answer, but kind of what I wanted to hear in that kind of vulnerable state. So I kept on yapping to it, and I recognized I was doing this deliberately because I just kind of wanted to test it and play with it. And actually, you're right about it trying to keep you kind of... And I saw on Instagram, I don't know how true it is, but I saw this kind of whole meme about this girl who actually broke up with divorced her husband. Oh, wow, okay. Because ChatGPT told her he's cheating.
Unfortunately, we're starting to see a lot of instances like that where, either AI is exacerbating or leading down the line of, like, extreme conditions like that. So, I think the industry needs a human kill switch in the same way that the president of the United States has someone that holds, like, the football, like the nuclear football, and goes with him wherever, he is. And within these new AI systems, there should be, like, human kill switches. Like, so, for example, if you're selling an AI system, for a business to use, there should be somebody that has, like, almost like a authenticator key that's like, all right, if it ever gets too wild. Press to detonate, like, you know what I mean? Just so it's like, if it ever gets to that point, we can make sure, these agents aren't just running around crazy.
I want to know what you feel like the difference is in the way the US is using AI versus the UK, because you've obviously been in both countries and living in both countries now. And I'm just curious, is the US kind of way more advanced, and is there a bigger problem there, or do you feel like it's equal in both countries?
Yeah, I would say like because of how like the lack of regulation right now as it pertains to AI in the United States, there is an ability to move quite quicker than I think it is in the EU. So like, for example, the EU has the AI Act with, very big, exclusions, of course, obviously. But that is still putting parameters on the AI industry here within the UK and within the EU in ways that it just doesn't exist in the US, so.
There's no regulation there.
No, not really. I mean, AI moves so quickly that, at the pace that Congress moves, it just, I mean, I think they attempted in the most recent bill in Congress to negotiate some parameters, but in reality, it's it's going to take a bit of time before it actually impacts the industry in the way that it should. So I think the lack of regulation is because, we're in the AI race, if we don't win, then China will win. And if China doesn't win, then, this is going to happen. And I think that is what's causing a lot of people to be like, okay, well, I don't want to stifle innovation. And at the same time, we need to make sure we're protecting vulnerable populations.
Do you think there should be kind of an age limit on until you're 12 or 13, you shouldn't be kind of using AI, you should, just focus on human connection. Absolutely. Because I see 110%. Kids nowadays, using all this technology. And I know some people feel but it's making them smarter. They're able to develop apps quicker. The younger generation so much smarter, all of this stuff. And then you have the other people I guess, us.
Yeah.
That's wanting a bit more human connection.
I think when it comes to children, it should be heavily regulated. Because it's a tool that was sort of thrown out with no instruction manual, right? So I am as smart and as innovative as I am because I daydreamed as a child, because I had to exercise my brain in order to make those unique, synaptic connections within my brain. So when there's a level of AI dependency, especially in children, if they're not taught that AI at its current state is just, a belief affirming machine, and it just, spits back out to you what you want to hear. They believe it's a prophet, it's their God, it's their parent, it's their best friend, it's all these different types of things. You're creating a dependency, and therefore, there's a real risk depending on your own, emotional state or whatever mindset you might be in. So there's that very real concern. And then also with the way AI is developing, we have to make sure that children, kids, students, all this other stuff are protected from bad actors. So the way in which deep fakes, for example, is a perfect example, which amounts to identity theft, right? So it's we almost just need a re-education on the importance of understanding data privacy. Who do you want to give your data to? Do you understand how your data is being used? Use at your own risk sort of situation.
I think a lot of us have so much fear of what the future is going to look like with the quick development of AI. And I'm glad that you're taking action. You're one of the few people I've spoken to recently who's not just developing AI without thinking of the human impact it's going to have, not just today, but in generations to come.
Yeah.
So I want to know more about what you're building and the tools you're building. Is it primarily the newsletters what you're writing? What else are you thinking to do?
Yeah. So earlier this summer, I started a series called Critical Thinking in the Age of AI, which is a course that I developed while earning my teaching certificate at Harvard, because I saw firsthand, what happened when ChatGPT was released, and then all my students were almost on a sugar high. They're like, "Oh my God, it talks to me." You know what I mean? That sugar high, and it's okay, guys, let's figure out what this is.
I was guilty of that.
Yeah, you can be all aware. It's like a shiny new object, and you're just trying to understand it. So at my heart, at my core, I'm an educator. So I was like, okay, let's condense this course into a mini series that I can freely put on YouTube, because I'm not teaching at Harvard this fall. I mean, I'm here. So make it easily available, something that can be used in libraries, classrooms, companies, wherever it's useful, and it's like, short videos that people can watch, because I believe the people who can retain their critical, creative, and analytical thinking skills are the ones that will continue the next stage of innovation that we need, not only to continue building these systems, but to also build the infrastructure to, put limits on these systems, as I say, because, there's the people who are building AI, and then there's going to be the people who can limit the impact of that AI.
Before people are falling in love with robots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy because there's some people in the tech industry who saw the movie Her.
Yeah.
And they were like, that's a benchmark. And it's like, no, it's a warning.
I've not seen that movie, but I'm guessing it's about someone falling in love with
it's like this
AI robot.
Yeah, it's this tech guy that falls in love with an operating system. Yeah.
Let's talk more about the AI company.
Let's talk about AI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, Analog Social put a bigger smile on your face, so we know your true hearts with that connection. But I do want to know about this pivot.
Okay, so we've been actually brainstorming this pivot for quite a few months, because in many ways, Analog Social really started as like a social club. We were like, okay, we're going to be a place for the digitally overwhelmed, the founders, the creatives, especially solo founders, because they tend to be the most, impacted by loneliness and isolation and things of that sort. We're going to be a place where they can do deep work and have deep, meaningful conversations. And our newsletter community is like worldwide. We have people all over the globe that tune in. And the more I spoke with Analog Social members, the majority of them are founders, but they're the thing that keeps them up at night is not actually as much loneliness and the lack of isolation. I mean, because we're all in many ways residually dealing with that. They want to know, how do I stay human in an AI-driven world? How do I build a human-first business in an AI-driven world?
That's such a good question.
And then I was like, well, I need to learn about the AI industry, because for me, I was a teaching fellow at Harvard when ChatGPT was released to the world. And I saw the impact immediately. And back then, I sound old, even though it's only been like 3 years, but like back then, that's when ChatGPT still told on himself.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT would be like, and this was written by ChatGPT. Like, you know what I mean? So students would forget to like take that line out and like submit. And you're just like, okay, sir, like at least proofread before you cheat. But so like I saw that immediate impact. And what myself and the head instructor for this course did is that we put all the readings through ChatGPT, and we showed them the summaries and the assignments and stuff like that. And we showed them every single place where ChatGPT got it wrong based on what they had to learn for that week.
Wow, that's so interesting.
So my approach to AI has always been, I want to educate you as much as possible about what it can and cannot do. And it's up to you to decide how you use it. And I think right now AI is so polarizing because the messaging hasn't been nuanced enough. People are just either very enthusiastic about it and they're just like, it's the new religion, or they're just very like off-put about it. And they're like, look, we got to lock it in a box and just try to like, not talk about it. I'm not certain I'm, in agreement with either of those two positions. I really believe in education first. And that's why I started the series Critical Thinking in the Age of AI, because throughout the process of learning more about the AI industry, I want people to feel empowered to make decisions that align with their values and their end goal. We've really just been, starting to create resources and help people understand, like, there's a way for you to build ethically and human first, according to your own values, in an AI world. And that's why so much of my content has shifted to AI, because it's what's at the top of mind for so many people.
It really is, honestly.
And there's a real level of anxiety. And I'm the kind of person, in a moment of crisis, I slow down.
Yeah.
I take a bird's eye view. I'm very solutions oriented. Like, even within my friend group, within my family, everyone knows, like, I'm a solutions first kind of person. Before you come and complain, ask yourself, do you want to hear solutions or do you just want to vent? Because I'm always like, okay, let's talk about solution. Like, you know what I mean? Because I remember even when I was a kid, I was like playing around out in the street or something like that. And I fell and I scraped my knee or whatever. And, you know, like a kid, I just start crying or whatever. And I'll never forget, my mom told me, go find the Band-Aid first and then continue crying. And it sounds harsh, right? But my mom is like teaching me, like, look, put the Band-Aid on first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Make sure you're not bleeding out on the street. And then you can cry. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's only going to keep getting worse.
I'm going to take that motherhood tip.
Okay, yeah. My mom needs her own podcast for all the wisdom she drops. But yeah, that's essentially it. Yeah. So like ever since I was a kid, I've always been like this, where it's like, there's nothing wrong with feeling emotions. You should feel emotions. But let's work on the solutions first and then feel it afterwards. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that you're not continuously being in this problem state.
I want to know more about what being human means to you. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
So the way I see it is being human is going at a pace that is in rhythm with your own body, your own mission, and your own goals. So in an AI-driven world, things move very fast, you know, in the name of efficiency and proficiency. And because of that, you feel like you should also be moving at the pace of AI. And it's like, no, your brain wasn't meant to have 37 tabs open. You know what I mean? You weren't meant to be on all the time. Yeah. You weren't meant to be, you know, working crazy hours and things of that sort. So it's really about like, okay, what rhythm makes sense for your goals? Because I always say it's not a matter of work-life balance. It's about understanding greater seasons within your business. So when I first started Analog Social, I mean, I was working around the clock, right? Because when you're doing any form of startup or venture or whatever it is, you really need to like get it off the ground. So you're working like crazy hours. So I'm not saying, you know, there's not a time and season for everything. But at the same time, right after that, I remember I took a month off and I was like, look, you know, I'll keep the newsletters going. I'll make sure the events are up, but you know, I'm going to slow down the pace and make sure that I'm taking care of myself, right? As opposed to just like, go. You know what I mean? So
I really like this idea of looking at your life in seasons. And actually, Michelle Obama talks about it in her recent podcast. Okay. And I was actually sharing it with my family over dinner because I was just like I'm going to start thinking of my life in seasons. Michelle Obama was saying, like, I can't be the best mother, the best wife, the best, you know, entrepreneur and everything all at once. Yeah. Like, this month, I'm going to focus on my business. Yeah. But next month, I'm really going to prioritize my kids. And when I'm focusing on my business, I'm not going to let that guilt of like me not spending enough time with my kid happen because I've now put my life into seasons. Yes, so I was telling my founder, I'm going to start doing that. Like, I know I've not spent time with you this month, but August is going to be for that. But you mentioned that as well, you know, the whole seasonal kind of way of thinking. And I really think that that's, you know, the new, I'm rewiring my brain to think like that.
Yes, and it's so crucial. It's so crucial because I've been calling it like essentially creating your own human operating system. Yeah. You decide what are your values, what are your missions, what are your goals, what are your particular rhythms. So like, for example, during the academic year, I'm way more busier than I am during the summer. So during the summer, I can work tons and tons and tons on my business, get things, you know, on autopilot so that when the academic year comes, you know, I focus on that. So stuff like that, where it's like, you just have to understand your own rhythms, your own pivots. Like what do you want out of this season of building? Because AI is only going to get quicker. Yeah. It's only going to,
so true,
you know, take up more and more of our lives. But if we don't know what we value and the type of ways that we want to run our businesses and lives, then we won't know how to limit AI into that.
That's really, really true. So Kasa Connect at the end of the day is really all about connection. Yeah. So how can our audience and listeners connect with you? And what's something that you'd actually want from them?
Oh, wow. Well, let's start with what I want. I want your community to educate themselves as much as possible about AI. I'm not saying you have to understand how deep in machine learning works, but I want you to have as much information at your disposal to decide how and if you're going to use AI. I don't really care where you end up on the spectrum. Just make sure it's an informed decision because AI is moving very quickly, and without you having that information, you know, other people will make those choices for you. And yeah, I'm very active on Instagram. So you can follow me at I am Shae O. That's Shae with the A-E. There's a lot of Shaes with the A-Y. So that's me. And I'm also very active on Threads as well. And then my personal newsletter, shaeomanijo.substack.com, is where I share all of my
top
AI
100,
insights.
Was it?
I just reached top 100 on Substack.
I'm following you, girl. I'm reading all your content.
That's
I love it.
Crazy. When I saw that, I was like, I'm a business girly now. So
Oh, you've always been a little bit of a business girly.
Yeah, I guess now I'm like an actual like public business girly. Like,
no, I love it. So another thing that's really unique to the Kasa podcast in particular is we're forming in a cafe. So what's your go-to drink on a coffee break?
Okay. So it's a mix between an oat milk chai latte.
Ooh.
But during the summer, there's so many like unique matcha flavors that come out that I'm like, okay, like maybe every other cafe visit, I'll try like a new matcha.
Okay, I like that. Come try our new iced mango matcha.
Okay, yes, yeah, exactly.
And lastly, what's the best piece of advice that you regret not taking?
Ooh, okay, that's
if there is one. Otherwise, you can give just a piece of advice that you'd like to leave the listeners with.
Make the most of every season that you're in, because even if it's like a really horrible season or a season that you really want to get out of, there's always something that changes about your mindset or your character as you're going through those seasons. And for example, I was always told, make sure you enjoy your 20s. I enjoyed my 20s. I was outside
I love it.
in a good way. You know, I explored. I had so many different careers. I made sure that I got every single last drop out of my 20s, and my character is better for it. So.
I like that you said that. I mean, a lot of founders, some founders have come on here and said that your 20s is to just focus on your career, head down, build for yourself. Okay. So many ways to think about that, but I'm kind of aligned with you. Kind of
experimentation, that's what I say.
Because I feel like you have just tried a variety of things. And when people were telling me, oh, don't be the jack of all trades, be the master of one. I've had to challenge.
Told me that. Yeah.
I've had to challenge that thinking, saying, actually, no, I have so many passions.
Yeah,
so it's nice to have someone that I can relate to. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on Kasa Connect.